Do you ever get the feeling you're not as good as you could be? Kind of like you're treading water and you're just sort of stuck in one spot no matter how much you practice? And wouldn't it be nice to know why that's happening? It's your left hand. So I wanted to make a video today about the top 5 biggest mistakes that you're probably making with your left hand without even knowing it. I mean, the truth is we all develop bad habits and make mistakes when we learn the instrument. It's just the nature of playing and developing on guitar. But if you don't fix them, they can end up sticking with you for years, even decades. And they can really slow you down and stop you from getting better. And playing guitar is hard enough, especially if you're subconsciously making things harder. And that's exactly what these bad habits do. They make guitar playing much harder than it needs to be. So the best thing you can do for your advancement and your own improvement on the guitar is not to learn some new flashy guitar solo or some crazy speed lick or try to pick like your super guitar hero. The best thing you can do is learn how to undo the bad habits that you've created and sort of free yourself so you can actually move forward. So let's get right into it with mistake number 1. Has your hand ever cramped up from playing bar chords too long? What about getting dead notes in your bar chords? One of the most common mistakes that amateur players make when playing bar chords is this move, where they pinch between thumb and index and squeeze the strings into the fretboard. This is a humongous problem and the source of a lot of technical issues that are probably slowing you down. So when you pinch like this, when you pinch that bar, you actually activate this muscle in your hand right here. Try it out. Squeeze between your index and thumb and put your other finger right here, and you can feel that. You can feel that muscle go. You can even see it. So to avoid this cramping issue, we have to use something else instead of this pinching motion. And this is where leverage comes in. If you wanted to move like a huge boulder, you wouldn't just try to like pick up this huge boulder. You would find like a long plank of wood or a long stick or something and put it underneath the boulder and try to roll the boulder, right? You wouldn't just pick it up. You would try to use leverage. In the case of bar chords, the leverage actually comes from rotating your forearm, not pinching. You don't want to pinch a bar chord, you want to rotate into a bar chord. When pinching, my thumb sits right behind my index finger. But if I slide my thumb towards the body of the guitar, my forearm begins to rotate. So it starts to do this. The farther I move my thumb towards the body, I can only go so far before my entire forearm starts to rotate. And that rotational movement right there, that's what actually slams my index finger into the string and into the neck. So if I'm playing, let's say like a major chord, for me, I try to have my thumb somewhere behind my ring finger, maybe my middle finger, but I definitely don't want it here. And that's for a couple different reasons, which we'll get into. But the biggest one is that by moving it here, I'm no longer pinching and I'm not going to tire out. In this position, I could play bar chords all day long, even on an acoustic with slightly high action. But this rotational thing doesn't just get rid of the cramping issue. It also solves the dead note problem. So it's kind of like a 2-for-1. A lot of players keep their index way too high above the neck of the guitar because otherwise, if they lowered it, some of the strings would fall into the creases of their knuckles, and that's where the dead notes come from. And the reason for this is that when you're getting these dead notes from falling in the crease of your fingers, or in the crease of your knuckles, it's because you're on the pad of your index and not on the side of your index finger. See, the pads here are real soft and fleshy, right? And the side of your finger, the side of your index, is hard. So when you take these soft pads of your index finger and press them against the strings, the creases of your knuckles and all the soft flesh here on your finger ends up wrapping around the string like a pillow and creating a dead note, muffling it. But once again, by rotating and bringing that thumb closer to the body, you can actually get on the side of your index. You can actually get on that hard part of your index finger, and your index finger will function a lot more like a capo. It'll be really hard. You can drop your index finger farther down so you don't have to be sticking so high up above the neck. You can drop it down, and then you can actually press all 6 strings down evenly with very little pressure. So not only will you get rid of your dead note problem by rotating, You'll get rid of your cramping problem. You'll be able to play clean, nice, powerful bar chords with very little force, no squeezing, no pinching, no cramping, none of that. Your bar chords will essentially probably be solved if you can get this thumb to move 1 or 2 frets down towards the body. Just cause a little rotation in your hand and you'll be good to go. Fixing that bar chord actually leads me into the next big mistake that I see players making with their left hand. And it's the reason you have a weak pinky finger and you probably can't play huge stretches on the fretboard very comfortably. And guess what? It also has a lot to do with your thumb. Your thumb is by far the most important part of your left hand, and it's probably the finger that you pay the least amount of attention to. Your thumb is what balances the hand and actually distributes weight to each finger in order to fret as you play. So what does that mean exactly? Well, did you ever see one of those tightrope walkers, those guys that walk between skyscrapers on the rope? What are they holding? They're holding like a really big, huge, long stick. And where are they holding it? They're holding it in the very center of that stick. They're not holding it off to the side, because if they did, they'd just tip right over. They have to hold it in the very center, and the center of that long stick is what helps them balance and keep their balance as they walk along the rope. Believe it or not, your hand and thumb actually work the same way on the fretboard. The reason you have a hard time, doing pull-offs, hammer-ons, big stretches with your pinky, and you feel essentially like your pinky is weaker, it's not because your pinky needs more strength. That's not what it is. What it is the weight in your hand is distributed unevenly. You're basically holding that stick off to one side and trying to walk along the rope. And that's because your thumb is too close to the index finger side of your hand when you're playing. That's basically the same idea as the bar chord thing. When you have your thumb over to this side of your hand, it's basically pulling all the weight into that side of your hand and releasing weight from the pinky side of your hand, which is why you have trouble using your pinky. And it's also why you have no trouble using your index and middle finger, because that's where the weight and the balance in your hand is located. But if you take this position and you slide your thumb into the middle of your hand, so now the thumb is basically between my middle and ring finger. Now the weight in my hand is evenly distributed, and I can put the same pressure in my pinky as I can my index with very little effort. It allows you to stretch much farther and use your pinky way more efficiently. It creates easier hammer-ons and pull-offs, and essentially is just better biomechanics in your left hand when your thumb is towards the middle of the position your hand is in. However many frets you're playing over, your thumb should be in the middle of that. So if I'm playing over 4 frets, my thumb is in the middle. If I'm playing over a big position, like if I'm playing over 6 frets, my hand is spanning 6 frets, guess where my thumb is? Right in the middle. If I'm playing over 3 frets, right in the middle. 2 frets, right in the middle. And you could test this out yourself. Take your thumb and put it all the way like this behind your pinky, like way behind your pinky. Now try to reach towards the headstock with your index finger. It's not happening, man. There's no way, because all the weight in your hand is on your pinky. So when all the weight's over here behind your index, guess what your pinky can't do? So consistency is king on this instrument. And by keeping the balance and weight distributed evenly in your hand and consistent throughout everything you play, not only will your pinky finger, hammer-ons, pull-offs, slurs, stretches, all of that will be improved, but if you apply the same thing to your bar chords, well, guess what? They're going to get better too. And since we're talking about improving your pinky finger and increasing the reach of your left hand, the next big mistake that players make is something you've probably been told to do multiple times. When it comes to getting a wider stretch and a wider reach across frets on the guitar, most people think that they have to actually do something that in reality reduces the stretch. And I'm talking about this infamous classical guitar position. If you're a blues rock player, you should not be using this position in your left hand. Unless for some strange reason you have to do something, and even then, you should get out of it as quickly as possible. And I'll probably catch a lot of flack for this, but that's okay. I'm not worried about it. So I've been a classical guitarist since I was in my teens. I've got my bachelor's degree, my master's degree, several post-grad degrees. I've won like international competitions in classical guitar. So this is not something that I'm unfamiliar with. Like, I'm sort of born and bred a classical guitar player. I bring all that up because this isn't just some like random theory I have. It's actually based on something I have a ton of experience with. And this hand position is like kryptonite for most blues rock guitar players. I mean, have you ever seen the hands, the left hand of some of the players you like? Santana, Jimmy Page, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Jimi Hendrix. None of them look like this. None of them. Instead, what they actually do is they hold their hands like this with their fingers at a steep angle cutting across the frets in this direction, not vertical, straight up and down like a classical guitarist. And another thing they do, they keep their thumb over the top. See, the higher you move your thumb on the back of the neck, the more your fingers will come at an angle. And so this angled position allows them to do 4 critical things in order to play blues rock really well. Number 1, it allows them to keep their thumb over the top of the guitar, which is crucial for bending and vibratos. It also allows them to play with a more relaxed hand. And the relaxed hand allows the fingers to sit a little flatter on the guitar and less curved, which is great for muting because that's a necessary part of playing like blues and rock. And it puts their pinky in a position that allows it to stretch and reach farther than it would in the classical position. In order to reach this far in the classical position, I have to shift like this and split all my fingers really, really far apart. Now, if I got rid of the guitar and I was left with that doesn't exactly look like relaxed and comfortable and easy to do. That's a very energy intense position to hold. And I'm not even moving yet. I'm just sitting there. And this unnatural way of holding your hand, it just doesn't make sense on like steel string or electric guitar. It makes sense on classical because the string spacing is so much farther, the neck is so much wider, and the frets are actually a little bit wider. So everything is bigger. But not only that, left hand muting isn't a thing in classical guitar. In classical guitar, you're never playing a string that you're not supposed to. But in blues rock, you know, you're taking this like, right? You're hitting a bunch of notes that are dead and percussive sounding because that's the effect of that style of music. So you need to be able to mute with your left hand. You can't use this position and mute successfully. So if you find yourself either purposely or by accident gravitating towards this vertical finger classical guitar position, test this out. Just try playing stuff like this with your thumb a little higher, your fingers at an angle, and see if your bending, vibrato doesn't improve, sliding, and just see if your hand starts to resemble your favorite guitarist, your favorite blues rock guitarist a little bit closer, because I'm certain that it will. Okay, this next mistake is something I guarantee you do, and something that you'll be really surprised at how easy it is to change. Do you ever feel like you can't really play super fast? Or when you go to play something fast or really hard or intricate, your hand sort of locks and you can't make that move? It's because you're holding excess tension in your hand. You ever notice how really great guitarists look like they're just kind of gliding across the fretboard, like they're barely trying? Now, obviously you need to use some tension, but how much exactly? So test this out for me. Put your finger on a string and don't fret it. Just get like a dead note. Now slowly increase pressure until you get a buzzing note. We don't want a nice note. We want a buzzing note like this. So you're barely pushing. Now increase the pressure 1% at a time until that buzz goes away. So, how much pressure are you using? And I know the answer, way less than you normally play with. The truth is that on almost any guitar, you need way less pressure and way less tension in your fingers than you think you do. Even if your guitar is not perfectly set up, You know, maybe it has a little high action or it's a steel string, whatever the case. I guarantee you can get away with less pressure. I mean, almost every intermediate and amateur guitar player uses way too much pressure when fretting each note. It's not helping you at all, and it's really just making you use more energy, which takes away from your ability to move fluidly around the neck and play with ease and play relaxed. Now, so when you practice, set aside 5-10 minutes a day to run simple scales and concentrate only on the amount of pressure you're using, and see if you can't mentally keep track of how much pressure you're applying to each string and to each finger, and see if that pressure can't stay consistent, so that when I'm playing a note with my middle finger, I'm using one amount of pressure, and then when I go to use my pinky, I'm trying to replicate that same level of tension and pressure on the string. And eventually you'll be able to play with a really light touch on your left hand. You don't have to get a whole new setup. You can do it with your guitar as it is. And playing with that light touch will get rid of this stuck feeling where you kind of get locked up and you have a lot of tension in your hand. All right, so the final and biggest mistake I see players making is limiting what their left hand can do, and in some extreme cases, causing themselves pain and maybe even injury when they're practicing. It's probably the worst habit that you could possibly have as a guitarist, and it's one that way too many people don't even realize they're doing. So I'm going to save you a potential injury here today. I'm talking about this. This bent wrist will destroy whatever technique you have in your left hand. Now, like with everything on guitar, there is a small caveat here. There are moments where you have absolutely no choice but to break one of these rules, where if I'm doing a humongous stretch, I have to maybe bend that wrist in order to do it. But it's something I should avoid in every scenario unless I absolutely have to use it. And when I have to use it, I get out of it as quickly as I can. Ultimately, you want as much freedom, finger independence, and mobility as possible in the fingers of your left hand. I mean, you're asking them to contort into a bunch of different shapes while moving independently in different directions thousands of times within a song. I mean, you're asking a lot of your left hand. And this wrist position severely limits what you can do. Try this out for me. Hold your hand straight up with your wrist straight in line. Now, make a tight fist. Easy, right? Okay, now do it again. Hold your hand up and bend as far as you possibly can with your wrist until it's like at a 90-degree angle. Now try to make a tight fist. Like you can't unless you release that angle in your hand. And this is because your tendons won't allow it to happen. The tendons on the outside of your forearm control the extension of your fingers. They allow your fingers to go from like a fist to extended and outright. And so when you bend at the wrist, those tendons elongate over this bend here. They're stretching and they're pulling your fingers straight. So if you use this bend and then try to curl your fingers and play in a real tight, compact position, you're not going to be able to. I mean, basically, your tendons are pulling your fingers like you're straightening them, and then you're trying to curl them at the same time. You can't have it both ways. You can't extend your fingers and curl them. Not only does this whole thing limit what you can do and make your fingers straight and avoid the tips of your fingers, but it also causes you to use a ton of extra energy. Like, once again, this is not like a natural, comfortable, relaxed position. This is. And so if you're using a ton of extra energy, well, that just means you're going to be tense and tight as you play. So you're going to be tight, tense, not relaxed. You're not going to be on the tips of your fingers. You're not going to be able to curl your fingers. There's no way you're going to be able to play comfortably and easily and fluidly. So instead of using this wristband, you should be using as close to a natural wrist as possible. Get rid of the guitar and hold your hand as though you were like holding the neck of the guitar. You know, just relax. Go completely limp with your left hand. What shape do you get in your wrist? That one. It's pretty straight. It's definitely not like this. So if this is what my wrist naturally wants to do, and I can make a tight fist, I can curl my fingers real tight, I can extend them all the way, I can move them in every direction, then what benefit does this thing have? Because I can't find one. I mean, my whole goal is to use the least amount of energy as possible and get the most out of my playing, get the most finger independence, flexibility, and control as I possibly can. So by forcing yourself to bend this wrist like this, you're limiting all those and replacing them with tension and stiffness and sort of that locking feeling. And it can all be easily avoided by practicing with a straight wrist, which for some people is going to feel pretty foreign because they might be used to doing this. And so learning to play with a straight wrist, bringing that wrist back in, might feel awkward, but ultimately long term, it will make you better. Guaranteed. And if you find yourself constantly reverting back to this wrist bend, there's a great drill that you can do. So for this drill, you can either use a wristwatch or you can just take like simple hair ties or rubber bands and a pencil, pen, and slide that pencil or pen so that the tip of it is about in the center of your palm. Now, if you try to bend your wrist with this, you'll feel it immediately in your palm. You can actually feel this while you're playing. You can feel the pen going into your hand, right? It's not going to hurt you. It's not going to stab you. It's not going to make you sore or anything, but it will trigger your brain and tell you, hey, I noticed this. This feels weird. And you can slowly work your way out of this wrist bend into a more natural position. And one last thing about this wrist bend. If you play with your guitar like really down low, slung low and the neck parallel to the ground, a lot of times that forces you to try to reach underneath because the neck is so low away from you that you kind of have to dip down and do this thing with your wrist in order to play. So if you really want to fix this problem, you're going to probably have to find a way to get that neck raised up. Use a strap, use a footstool, sit like I'm sitting with the bout on my leg, cross your legs, do something to get the neck a little bit closer, the guitar a little bit higher up against your chest. It'll prevent you from having to reach down and bend that wrist. And if you want a bunch of super simple, easy ways to do that, check out this video. And I would love to hear from you guys in the comments. Tell me what your biggest hurdles are for your left hand, maybe even for your right hand. Let me know what you're struggling with for guitar. I'm always looking for cool ideas for videos and maybe I can help you out.